Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Ohana. What a wonderful day today. Hope you all are ready for 24 hours full of learning, knowledge, and playing. Now, my name is Jitendra Jha, and with me, I have a co founder of this event, Amit and Rakesh. Hi, everyone. So, I will not take a lot of time before I give it to Leah. First question: how it all began? We have been organizing this event or the virtual events like Apex Hour, Automation Hour, Path to Code from many years. And the most important feedback we all got that okay, these events are excellent, but and we are able to join from comfort of our home. But how can we expand it? So this idea came last year, February 2019. Uh, that's how the virtual dreaming planning started, and we all three thought, okay, why not to have an event globally, 24-hour different tracks and all. Now, it takes a village to organize events like this. It is not possible that only me, Amit, or Rakesh can do it. So I would like to give a huge shout out to all of volunteers, all our advisors who have been working tirelessly around the clock from the last few weeks. So thanks everyone. 24 more hours, and let's try to make it memorable. Uh, we have pledged to support COVID-19 cause and partnered with Mercy Corp. So thanks to all our non-profit charity partners for their support. Also, thanks to all of our sponsors. Without them, this event would not be possible at all. Now, that being said, we have a well-known opening keynote speaker. I don't think anyone else could be better than Leah. We all love her, respect her, and we all look forward to be like her. So I would like to welcome Leah, the Vice President of Trailhead Evangelism from Salesforce. Hi Leah, how are
Good
you?
morning. Good morning. Can you everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yes, good morning. What a pleasure. I hope everybody, I got my coffee because it is early on a Saturday morning. But who else would I love to get up for than the Ohana on a Saturday morning? Yes. All right. So I'm going to share my slides. Yes.
Yes, you
All
can.
right. So first of all, thank you to you all. Amit, Rashish, Jindra, thank you so much for having me to be a part of this inaugural virtual dreaming. I mean, you all were ahead of the curve. So deep bow of gratitude to you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share and get myself all together here.
Yes, we can see that.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Awesome. So a couple of things. First of all, I want to give y'all a minute to grab a pen and paper, because I'm going to tell you to take some notes, or whatever it is you take your notes with, electronics or whatever, but have some pen and paper, because I'm going to invite you to take notes, or if there's things that resonate with you, please go ahead and feel free to, but I want you to be equipped. Now, as we do with all Salesforce presentations, the one thing I know everybody is looking forward to is the forward-looking statement. So please make all of your purchasing and implementation decisions based off of what is currently available and not anything I may share here, though I have no plans to talk about product. But with the Ohana, you never know how it will go down. All right. And we Salesforce, but even personally me, I always like to start from a place of gratitude. And I want to thank you all. I want to thank this amazing Trailblazer community for just being amazing. And even more so during this very challenging time for everyone. You all have found ways to come together virtually to uplift one another, inspire one another, inspire me. So I thank you. And I thank you for everything that you do. I look out there and I see all that you're doing and I think, am I doing enough? Is there more that I can do? So thank you for the inspiration and the motivation personally for myself, for our amazing team. I also want to give a huge shout out to the Trailblazer community team who are always out there supporting and making sure you all have what you need to continue to be awesome. Now, before we get started, what I want to talk a little bit about today, I know this word COVID-19 can be a little bit triggering, but here's the thing, like we got to be real with it. This is where we're at. So what I want to talk about is a little bit about how Salesforce came together to support Trailblazers community during this. And then I'm going to go a level deeper. I'm going to talk about my journey through this a little bit and hope in that process I'm sharing something that might be helpful to you or to someone in your space. Does that sound all right? That's good? Not that I can see you, but I see you're out there chit-chatting. All right, so let's do it. So, when we first started, and I have my notes too, I'm taking notes too. When this first started, this whole global health crisis began to escalate. All of, around Salesforce, around our team, people started having ideas of how can we better support? How can we help? We want to ensure that everyone is getting what they need. And people started spinning up ideas of what to do. And the first thing we wanted to do is to ensure everybody was grounded as possible in our values. So we wrote very clear guidelines of how we wanted to make sure we interacted with our customers and our communities. So, one of the things is we wanted to do support and connect. Anything that we wanted to do, we wanted to ensure that we were supporting and helping our community and our customers connect. And really, if I should have changed the order, because be empathetic should have been the first thing, right? Coming to this situation and from a space of empathy, because that's truly important when we're going through spaces that we are all brand new to. And people, while we all are going through this together, many of us are experiencing it differently. So we wanted to make sure we move through the space of empathy. And remember, this is a serious health and economic crisis. This is not, as I read somewhere before, this is not a snow day. This is serious. This is unprecedented times with huge impacts. And we wanted to bring teammates in. We wanted to make sure we were working together. We also wanted to make sure we were not, as the Salesforce and as Trailhead team, we weren't giving health and safety advice. We're looking to the CDC. We're looking to the medical field to do that. We can share what we're following, but we didn't want to give that advice. We also didn't want to ambulance chase, right? Yes, there's opportunity in crisis, but we want to make sure it's an opportunity that is serving the people well, not in a self-serving way. We also wanted to suggest solutions. We wanted to make sure we do not suggest solutions that, you have extra time. You'd often hear people, oh, now that you're working from home, like you got extra time. Well, let me be very clear. I am not only working from home, I am homeschooling twins, and I got a college child at home. So I'm constantly cooking because these folks are eating me out of house and home. And I got to make sure my kids are doing their work and I'm working. So help me understand where that extra time is. It isn't. So we wanted to be mindful that there is not, don't make assumptions that there is extra time. And definitely did not want to use this as a platform or a time to market or sell, because that is a completely tone deaf message. So how we came together, we wanted to make sure that we helped our community and we focused on where we could have the most helpful impact to our trailblazers as they juggled very different circumstances. So we focused on supporting and connecting in three main areas. One, we wanted to shift to virtual. This is one of the things is we shifted to virtual classes. We also wanted to make sure that we would support while learning in different circumstances. So we created new video series to help our trailblazers. And we also wanted to supporting and inspiring one another as you all have been doing. So we looked at you all out there and you all were ahead of us, right? Out there, you adjusted and canceled community events because you wanted to make sure the health of the community was first and foremost. And like London Dreamin changed to virtual. Like I said, virtual Dreamin already came out of the gate virtual, so they were ready. We also created content around best practices and platforms for virtual meetings. We created a Trailhead Live series with Sophia Rodriguez talking about how to host virtual meetings. And we also offered one-on-one meetings to have discussions. And you all were already out there doing things. You had a great quick doc out there, talking about coming together, virtual gatherings that grows week by week. I go into that doc every week. And I'd say on an average, there are like 30 events a week virtually. Just amazing. And, community managers and evangelists hosted casual chats because we wanted to ensure people weren't going through this alone. People had a space, a safe space to connect and to chat. So that was one of the things we wanted to do. And as always, we wanted to focus on positivity. There was a lot of, let's say, not positive things going on in the world. And we wanted to make sure that we heightened and amplify the positivity. Uh, I don't know how many of you all have the activity books for Rangers. So fun. I put together, that I'll put in the chat afterward, a trail mix of great stuff, including a link to all of the activities, coloring books that you can download for your kids or for yourself. Shoot, I've been coloring. It's quite therapeutic, I must say. I don't color within the lines, I will say that. So, they're coloring books. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had a regular drumbeat of Trail Heart tweets. Thanks to Becky, to Lauren. I love the photo that she put together of us sharing our thank you to this amazing community. So as a company, as a team, we really work to come together to bring as much positivity and joy in this space. Now, that was on a company and team wide. And I had to think, and then I was thinking, as I talked to you all today, I could have left it at that and said what the company did, but I wanted to be real with you and talk about my movement through this process and what it looked like for me. So when this was happening, when this was unfolding in March, I'm shell shocked like everybody else. Like, what? We're working, what? The towers are closing down. We're going to work from home. So there's a lot going on. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to help lead my team in a really mindful way and a very cautious way, because I don't want to project my anxiety, because I was having anxiety and I was having fear. And then one morning I woke up and I thought, okay, we're about to go into this space where we are all going to be sheltered in. I was busy trying to get my college student home because he was away at college. The school is shutting down. I was figuring out what homeschooling was going to look like for my twins. And I was figuring out how my husband and I were going to co-work in the same office space and still get along and stay married. So I was trying to figure all this out. And then I thought, this time is almost equivalent to like a metamorphosis. We're going inward. We are being shut in. We are being put into a time out. And I'm looking at more as a time in. So I thought about a butterfly and going through metamorphosis. So it motivated me to write this blog about how I wanted to spend my time in this shelter in place and things that I could use to make sure that I was using this time as productive and positive as possible. So I thought of things, these tips, and I have a link here that I could put in the chat that goes to the blog. But one of it was, first, embrace mindfulness, whatever that looks like for you. It was for me, getting up every day and starting my day, one, always grounded in gratitude, but starting in prayer and giving thanks. And I knew I was going to need an extra dose of being prayed up and readied up, because I had a house full and my family hadn't been together like that on a regular basis in a while. Like I said, I had a college student who was away at college. My husband got up every morning, went to work. I went to work, and the twins went to school. So we were always used to moving through the day in our own spaces. And then all of a sudden, just like that, we were being put to share the same space and accomplish all the things that we needed to do. That was a huge shift for us. So I really was like, all right, I need to be prayed up for these days. So I made a point of starting every day being grounded in a mindful practice. Now, I'm going to be real. There were some days that I did not start that day. There were some days I barely wanted to get out the bed. Still are, right? But I knew I had to create a routine for myself. Getting grounded in gratitude. In those times of frustration, I would always make sure I was grounded in gratitude. And we're going to revisit that in a minute. I also looked at it as a time of, how can I reach out? So I live in an area where there are some elderly people. So I wanted to touch base and make sure they were okay. Because, from the news and the media, they weren't allowed to go to the stores. And I wanted to make sure they needed everything they had, right? That they had everything that they needed. So I would stop by, making sure I was social distancing, ask if they needed anything from the grocery store. I even made little survival, I call them quarantine survival packs for them, care packages. And yes, it did include a very highly regarded roll of emergency toilet paper. And my husband was like, "Are you giving away toilet paper? You know how important that is right now." And so I made sure all of them had toilet paper. I gave them some games and things that, just suggestions on how they could, spend the time. Once again, this was all new territory for us. I also wanted to be mindful of the news, right? Because if I watched the news every morning, it was just instilling fear. And we're going to revisit that in a moment. So I wanted to make sure, what was I following on my feed, my social feed? And then I actually wanted to just turn off my social feed for a while, put the phone down, put the computer down, and actually get this, pick up a book. I wanted to pick up a book. All those books I had started that I didn't get a chance to finish, I started reading them. I have some great books. If you want to hit me up, I can tell you some of the books that I've read. And also reconnect. So I took a moment to reconnect with friends. I was having, Zoom happy hours. I also wrote letters. I still am writing letters. Me and my sister talked more than we ever have, which is great, every day. So just really taking a chance to connect with folks. And then I have a dear friend of mine who taught me about vision booking, not vision boarding, but creating a vision book and having different chapters. Like, what's the vision you have for yourself within your career? What's the vision you have for yourself financially? What's the vision you have for yourself in relationships? So she helped me define, being more strategic in my visioning and more focused in it. So really putting together my vision book as well, using this time to do that. Now, while this is the way that I was going into the shelter in place, right? And I was like, I'm going to make this a very, very productive time as much as possible. And this was my theory going in. And these were my sort of values that I was grounding myself in. And then came this. The news everywhere. The news everywhere. Fear inducing, anxiety inducing, doubt and worry inducing, all of those feelings every time you turned on. And here's the fact, it was grounded in truth, right? We knew Italy was being hit hard and their death tolls were just crazy, right? We knew that there was going to be an economic crisis. The stocks were tumbling and folks were losing jobs. And I knew people in my circle that lost jobs. I had, team members whose spouses were losing jobs. So this stuff started kicking in and the reality started kicking in like, yo, this is serious, right? So this is moving through March and April. And, even the news about African Americans were disproportionately dying from COVID and still are. And the reality is, I have lost several family members to this. So this was no longer news messages. This was becoming part of my reality. And then, we have, I hate to use the word leaders, we had, the president over here inciting, real racial tensions by calling it the Chinese virus and saying really inflammatory things that were not just ignorant and hurtful, but causing harm to my Asian brothers and sisters. This was reality. And I'm having some of my Asian friends, receiving racial slurs to them, being out in the grocery stores. So this is becoming really heavy. Like, this is real. This is becoming, how do I navigate this? Now I'm really just becoming full of fear and wanting to stay inside and not wanting to be a part of this world. What is this world that I'm coming into? And I really had to take a step back because one of the things I know to be true, where your attention goes, energy flows. So when you are focusing on whatever it is, that is what will come to you. So if I'm focusing on what I do not want to happen, it will happen because my energy is going there. So I needed to focus on, I really, really had to put all that mindful practice that I was doing to use. because this was the time where it was needed the most. Still is the time, right? We are still in this pandemic. We are in the space where we are starting to become, the world's going to open up and we're going to talk about this. But these were real facts, real impactful feelings, things that were happening, and we needed to be equipped. And what I believe to be true is that this COVID virus, it did not create all of these things. It helped to surface what was already there. It did not create racism. That was there. And people are like, well, what about the deaths of African Americans by COVID? Listen, there were health disparities long before COVID. We need to understand what the real cause of that is. It's just bubbling up all of these issues that have existed. See, that's the one thing you're going to learn, that I have learned, is that crisis will shine a light on the current inequalities of this world. So yes, crisis is also opportunity for us to see the real stuff and actually come together and talk about how do we want to reconstruct these issues that are being brought to light, so that when we move into this new world, this new norm, that we can create a more just, a more equitable, a more kinder space that we're all moving through. We don't want to bring in the old pre-COVID stuff. We want to take this opportunity to make sure that all this stuff we're seeing here, right? All of these issues that are being brought to light, that we are going to roll up our sleeves and we are going to do the work that needs to be done. So yes, this was ugly and is ugly, but it's a message for us. So as and I definitely wouldn't leave you here in the space of fear, but this is what I want to talk about. I thought about this last night and I thought, oh my goodness, what is the antidote to fear for me? Now, everybody thinks something different. For me, the antidote for fear is gratitude. So in those times that I am feeling anxiety, worry, my mindful practice has taught me how to capture my thoughts, not be controlled by my thoughts, stopping and breathing and seeing the thoughts. Then I shift my thought to gratitude. Gratitude in that moment. It could be anything in that moment. Ooh, I am thankful for this breath. I am thankful for this heartbeat. I am thankful for this coffee. See, I am. Hold on. It can be whatever piece of gratitude that shifts your energy from fear to gratitude. And I'm telling you, it is impactful. And what I want you to do here, I want you to do something for me here. I want everybody to stop. Because right now you're outside of yourself and you're listening to me, or you're watching something on the internet, or you're watching something on TV, or your mind is all over, but you're outside of yourself. I want to take a moment. I want you to stop. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath in and release it out. And I want you to write down in this moment, 3 things you're grateful for. Don't overthink it. 3 things you're grateful for. The first 3 things that come to your mind, just write them down. Write them down. And I would love, if you want to, did y'all share with me the what is that? The hashtag. It's in here.
Yes, it's a hash virtual dreaming 20.
Okay. So what I want to do, I want us to come together for a moment. As you're writing those 3 things down, I'm going to give you another minute. 3 things. Don't overthink it. Okay? I want to flood the virtual world. I want y'all to go out there and type I am grateful for, put one thing out there on Twitter, the Instagram, whatever, the Snappy Chat, whatever. I want you to go out there. I want to flood the virtual world with gratitude. I want all y'all to go out there. Just one thing, tweet. I am grateful for whatever. And then I want you to put hashtag virtual dreaming 20. Let me get my phone so I can do it too. Go out there. So I'm going to the Twitters and I'm going to say, I am grateful for breath. Hashtag, everybody do it. That's your assignment. Virtual Dreamin 2020, or just 20? Okay.
Just 20.
Okay. Dreamin 20. All right. I am grateful for breath in this moment. That is what came to my mind. I am grateful for breath. Hashtag virtual dreaming 20. And see, I believe the power of individually, we're powerful, right? Super individually, we're powerful. But when we come together collectively and we can bring that kind of energy to other people, I tell you, it is infectious. And if we start shifting our mind from fear to gratitude, now we are human. And there are going to be times, I can speak for myself. There are times when I'm like, yo, not today. I am not sunshine and rainbows today. It ain't happening. But I allow myself to be there for a moment, not forever. I don't, like I tell people, I don't purchase property there, right? I allow myself to drive through that space, acknowledge those feelings, and then move through it. Now, I know we have all come across somebody who has purchased property in that space and they are always there. It's always about something negativity or why something won't work or why it can't work or blah, blah, blah. That space of negativity, right? You want to be mindful. That is not what you want to become. That is not what you want to contribute to this world. And if we can do it collectively, just sending out there things we're grateful for, it can help shift the dynamic, shift the energy from fear to gratitude. Now, as we are getting ready to move into this new world, it's a new norm, folks. We got to be meditated up, prayed up, whatever it is you do as we move into this new norm. How are you going to prepare for it? Some suggestions I have. Like I said, have a mindful practice. I am not here to preach any religion or any of that. I invite you to whatever it is you do, whether it's your religion could be exercise, whether it's, Christianity, Muslim, Judaism, whatever it is, Buddhist, whatever it is, be grounded in that practice. Because I'm telling you, we're going to move into a new world where you're going to need to be grounded in something to move through this. And let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Yes, Frozen, let it go. They were preaching. Disney was preaching long before we knew. Let the things that were not serving you well, this pre-COVID, let it go as you go into this new norm. You have an opportunity to create new norms for yourself, whatever that might be. Those things that you were holding on to because of the hustle and bustle, we were all kind of like, commuting to work, dropping the kids off, get the kids to wherever. Oh, I got to fly to, Boise, Idaho this weekend. I got to go to New York next weekend. And during that process, we might have had some habits, some things that we were doing that weren't serving us well. This is our time where we can sit back and really evaluate what wasn't serving me well. How can I let that go? Do I want to bring that into my new norm? You have an opportunity to do that now. Stay grounded in gratitude. I'm telling you, when you do that, it shifts. And I teach my kids this, and I taught my kids a breathing exercise that I do when they get upset. So I'm like, okay, you want to breathe in from from your right, breathe it in and release it on your left. It will help, release whatever negativity you're going through. So it's so funny because if I'm fussing at them like, gosh darn, I told you to go make your bed, or why y'all leaving dirty dishes? All of a sudden I'll see my son go. I'm like, oh, he's like, I'm releasing the anger that you're bringing up in me right now. So it is quite funny. But he has a practice that he can go to. And I often tell them, they know, I'm like, when they start complaining about something, I'll say, before I can even finish the sentence, they're like, we know, just be grateful that we have clothes on our back, food in the stomach, and a roof over our head. I go, exactly. So once you start weaving it into them early, they'll remember these things. And I invite you and I encourage you to follow hope and not fear. And I would add, walk in your faith and not fear. You want to make sure you are moving in that space, because I'm going to tell you, we're about to go into a world where it's going to be very easy to get caught up in anxiety, because people are entering this world fearful. We are scared of this thing we can't see, the Rona or the Corona. I call it the Rona. Nobody can see it. People are fearful that I'm going to get the Rona. So when people act in fear, it's not always their best self. So you need to be prepared for how you're going to respond to that. You're going to need to be prepared for folks are going to be out there moving in the world without masks. How do you feel about that? Do you want to interact with people when they don't have their masks on? Do you need to draw those boundaries? And that's perfectly fine. You don't need to go off on them. I had a friend of mine go off on this gentleman in the grocery store because he didn't have a mask on. You don't need to do that. But you can be, I choose not to, engage with you because you don't have a mask on. That's your choice. Just like it's their choice not to wear one. So you need to get very clear about how you want to move through this new norm, how we're going to find peace with it, because I have to tell you, it's a little bit anxiety inducing for me when I'm going out to the grocery store or to Target and I'm looking at everybody in masks. Like, that's just so crazy to me. It looks like a Will Smith zombie movie at times. And I'm like, I need to start shifting my mind to accept this and find the beauty in this and find the joy in this, because this is going to be my new norm for a while. And I don't want to go out every time I see this and it induce anxiety. So these are the things I wanted to share with you that I have to offer with you. I don't want to take up the rest of your time, but just letting you all know this is kind of where I'm at on this journey. I'm very interested to see where you all are in this journey. And just know we are going to come through this. We're going to come through this stronger, and we're going to come through this better together. But we've got to do the work to do it. It doesn't just happen. With that, I thank you, and I turn it back over to, who am I turning it over to? I can't see.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Much needed discussion at this time on how to handle the situation, keep work and your personal life in balance, how to help and contribute to society. I really love your message that this is message for us. Gratitude is the antidote for fear. Very candid advice, and thank you so much, Leah. I know it's early morning for you, and I see the Twitter, social media, everyone is so excited about that. So
I want to take a deep bow of gratitude to you all, particularly my folks on the West Coast here, getting up here with me early in the morning. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate all of you all for staying present. I just really, really appreciate all of you. Thank you once again for having me. And I'm so excited to see what this experience is going to be today. So I'm going to be in and out all day because Saturday's my cleaning day. So I got to go deep clean the house. But once again, I really do appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. And that being said, we have another developer keynote speaker, Peter. Hey, Peter, good morning.
So, hi, everybody. My name is Peter Chittum, and I am Senior Director of Developer Relations at Salesforce. My job is to lead the Developer Evangelist team in the EMEA and America regions. I live in the UK, so sorry for the early morning, Leah. I know that's really hard. For me, it's kind of a lovely afternoon. So what I get to look at is some really beautiful blue skies out there. And that's kind of typical for coming to a conference and speaking. So oftentimes I'm inside and there's something really beautiful going on outside. But I think what's going on today with virtual dreaming is actually just as beautiful. This conference, this coming together, and I forget how many people I saw in there, but I think it was like 1,200 people last I checked. That's amazing. My contact information is there on the slide. Feel free to email me. Feel free to direct message me. My DMs are open, so please be kind. And with that, I want to share a little bit about myself personally. I think a lot of people see me on Twitter, but who am I? I am definitely an accidental IT professional. It was not what I went to school to do. But I have spent 20 years now in enterprise software, almost 10 years as a Salesforce developer. Family is my absolute 100% priority. And, with Leah's gratitude list, I thought that was amazing. A gratitude list is something I've used a lot in my life to help remind me and focus me on, what are really the important things going on right now. And for me, I put down family, community, and here. In other words, I'm really grateful for where I am at this exact moment right now. So thank you for that. Other things I really enjoy are travel. I do a bit of mountain biking, music. You can see a few musical instruments in the background there. And I do have a couple superpowers. One is I'm a people connector. And it's been a huge pleasure and a huge privilege for me to be able to connect different people in this community where I see points in common, and to get them to know each other and to work together. And I have freakishly long arms. So what you'll see in my thank you slide here is that a lot of these are selfies of me with folks, with some of you in the community who it's been my pleasure to interact with and be with as part of this community myself. So really, truly, thank you. Conferences like this, as I said, are really a privilege of what I do in my work. The organizers, Jitendra, Amit, Rakesh, wow, like this is just amazing that you put this together. And really everybody who's attending, all 1,200 of you plus that are out there, we wouldn't have these conferences if it weren't for you. So thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge just how timely this conference is. I know that the organizers thought of this well before the circumstances around coronavirus that have really come to dominate our lives in many ways. This was something that you had already thought of. And I had actually started thinking a lot about how we can do more virtual connection in the community. But wow, how timely is it that we have this opportunity to be together? So a few little things to expect from my talk today. I want to talk about technology. This is the developer keynote, so we want to make sure that we do that. I want to talk about you, the people, and some of the things that I get to see, not just in the Salesforce community, but in the broader developer ecosystem that's out there. And I want to talk about a couple of challenges that I see as well. Of course, the forward-looking statement slide simply states, don't make any purchasing decisions based on any forward-looking statements that I may make today. I'm going to make a couple. So I'll just put that out there for now. Now, I want to talk about the evolution of technology. As I mentioned on my About Me slide, I've been 20 years in this world of enterprise software. And if you look at what enterprise software was 20 years ago, circa 2000, there were some things that actually were strikingly similar. Business software and enterprise software has always needed to respond to business requirements based on the implementation. Integration has always been a must. And the platforms that I have worked in, and I've always worked for the vendor, have always wanted, or at least aspired to, customize with both configuration and code. Now, that being said, back in 2000, it was a very different landscape than what we live in today with Salesforce. Upgrade paths were super uncertain. There were integrations, but like the standards were kind of the Wild West. There were often complex proprietary models built around this customization by configuration. Yes, we customize with code, but oftentimes there were closed, non-standard APIs. And one of the big obstacles was often there were years between major releases. And when a major release came down, in order to take advantage of it, it often meant a 12 to 18-month re-implementation cycle, starting and building up from the ground up. So when I joined Salesforce and what we called Force.com at the time, Salesforce was a revelation to me. The clicks and the code, they just worked. I'd never seen that before in any of the other products that I had worked with. The customizations were forward compatible, in fact. All of the integrations were standards based. And we had this 3 release cycle per year that was like clockwork. And, I think back to my 10 years with Salesforce, and I think I can only think of maybe once or maybe twice that release has not happened like clockwork. Now that all being said, as much as this was such a huge sea change for me, there were still some things that were obstacles, honestly. So things like proprietary, that can be a huge obstacle to developers who were deeply steeped in open source at that time. Production as the source of truth was definitely something that was an obstacle to success in a lot of projects. And the metadata API coverage made that even more difficult, so that, saying things that could be changed in production, you couldn't even get them into version control to make sure that you tracked those. Now, during this time that, from starting with enterprise software to joining Salesforce, there was also this evolution going on in technology. 2001 was the Agile Manifesto, and this group of developers showed us how we could deliver software faster, more frequently, in smaller increments. Git came along, and that supercharged how we worked together as developers and created true communities around open source projects. jQuery was a massive change in Frontend and totally transformed how we thought about using front-end APIs to work with browser-based applications. Node.js came along, and that showed us how we could actually write JavaScript programs that would run on the server. And I have to say, those two things together absolutely changed JavaScript as a language from something where, previously we all kind of thought of this as kind of a janky little scripting language to a full-fledged programming language that could run enterprise software. And the same year that Node.js came out, the DevOps practices started to were created and developed that were really focused on breaking down the barriers between developers who were rewarded for shipping more features and sysops people who were rewarded for reliable software. And the tension that created caused a lot of problems in software development. So that DevOps process of how do we move code from version control into production faster while still maintaining quality created this massive change in how we built software. And so that brings us to 2010 again, where I joined Salesforce. And at that time, there was kind of this two worlds of being a developer if you were a Salesforce developer. There was the world of Salesforce developer, which I've just spoken about, which was really good for enterprise software if you had been working in enterprise software. But if your frame of reference were these brand new tools and practices that were being developed, it felt a little odd. And so I don't want to focus on the first 5 or so years of my time with Salesforce because that was kind of what was going on in those 5 years. But since that time, Salesforce and us working with you, we've really tried to bridge that gap so that we as Salesforce developers can use best-in-class standards-based tools that every developer appreciates using out there. And so the first sort of port of call I want to come to is front-end development and JavaScript. Now, I count the Aura open source project as a massive watershed moment where we decided to move Salesforce into the modern programming language of JavaScript. Now, say what you will about Aura and the original Lightning components and, and what those meant to us, we would not have the modern framework of Lightning Web Components had it not been for what we did at that period and what we learned from it. And I've been immensely excited with Lightning Web Components that we launched a little bit more than that ago, a year and a half ago now. But even more important, I think, than just launching this programming model has been Salesforce's participation in the committees for WE3C and TC39. And for me, this is one of the things that makes me get excited as a developer, where I see the technology I'm working with, no longer just responding to the standards, but sitting at the table and attempting to influence those standards in a direction that's going to move in a way that benefits enterprise software. And I think that's a massive change. Another big change, I think, came in 2017. In 2017, we launched the new Apex compiler, and this was rolled out sort of underneath the covers of every customer's org. And I think one of the biggest testaments to the success of the rollout process itself was when Dan Appleman stood up in a Meet the Developers session in one of our conferences and applauded the engineering teams for having rolled this out without anybody knowing it. And the advantage of that new compiler has been that we've seen cool new features of the Apex language come about. Things that we had taken for granted in other languages and we wanted, like Switch, for example, were made possible by this. Now, there have also been some other really cool investments in Apex. And what we see now is every release, there are more and more great features. One of my favorite ones is the with security enabled feature that you can now do in SOCL queries for Apex. It makes it much, much easier to manage security and permission around my Apex code. And I pulled this quote from Chris Peterson. This is something he shared on the Good Day Sir podcast Slack channel. It's probably rolled off into history now, but I captured it at the time. This was last year, talking about how important stability is as a product manager for Apex. And it's been a huge privilege to work with Chris and to see what he's been doing with the Apex language for all of us as developers. I'm gonna move really quickly through a few of these. To me, the Salesforce command line has become really the linchpin in my development process as a developer. I can't imagine going back to how I used to work as a Salesforce developer, where I would have an org, and to do anything, I had to go to that org and pull stuff down. The way I start my work these days is I go to my version control, I get the latest version, and branch off of that, and I start to work. And what a great gift that is. Visual Studio Code has been really fun to learn. It's a great text editor. And when I think of what kind of tools I want to be spending my time using, I want to use a tool that has a massive ecosystem of developers behind it. And that is exactly what Visual Studio Code is. This is a little statistic from the State of the Octoverse on GitHub. This was for 2018. And for that period, the most number of contributors for any one project was the Visual Studio Code project, which I think is fantastic. Now, I was going to talk about more support in the metadata API, and I had a different graphic. And then yesterday, Andrew Davis from Copado tweeted this graphic, and I thought actually that tells a way better story than than I had visualized this. Without good metadata API support, there can be no source of truth in your version control system. And so, I'm hugely appreciative of the metadata team who's been out there really working to plug the gaps and to make sure that we don't create new gaps as new features are rolled out. This has enabled us to start to use continuous integration and continuous delivery tools much more seamlessly. Where before, we definitely had people who managed to do continuous integration. It wasn't unheard of before the Salesforce DX changes started to happen. But nowadays, it's really much, much more attainable than it ever was before. And I'd encourage anyone to take a look at this blog. This also connects you with a number of open source projects that are out there that show you a path forward to use different continuous integration tools with your Salesforce projects. We've also been investing in developer relations and giving you better examples and better showing you a better path forward with how to get started coding on the platform. If you take a look at this samples gallery, it's actually available on Trailhead. The link is way at the bottom of the page, but if you just search Salesforce sample gallery, you will find it. This is a bunch of reference applications that we've created to show a way forward for developers. And the great thing about these is that we are trying to build these projects in exactly the way that we would expect our customers to if they were using the tools that we're providing today. And even to the point where as new features are released into the platform, we're making sure that we try and get those most important features in as well. And I talked about the with security enabled feature. That was something we rolled out in sync in these sample apps with the rollout of this into the platform, all in sync also with the content experience team who writes our docs, so that all at once, we had new features in the platform, we had good documentation, and we had great examples for developers to go and follow to use it. And open source is something that has become more and more of a theme. Open source has always been a little bit tricky for enterprise software. People want to, there's a tendency, I think, in enterprise software projects to want to ring fence your code and to make sure that it's secure and safe and trusted. And that's totally understandable, but that isn't necessarily completely contrary to the goals of open source software. So it's been great to see Salesforce investing in making sure that these tools that we're bringing you are all available in open source for contributions. Some of them are contributions by issues only, but there are definitely some cases where if you want to write that code and show us how we could be doing something better, you can write it, you can issue a pull request, and we'll review that for you. And I also want to give a little nod to the community because the open source movement is alive and well and strong in the Salesforce ecosystem. And one example of that, I think, is openforce.org. This is a little community of open source advocates who are out there trying to make good code examples and open source projects available to other developers in the ecosystem. Now, part of the reason I wanted to run through that was to spend just a little bit of time talking about one of the features that's upcoming. And this is, of course, where I make a few forward-looking statements. We announced Evergreen functions at Dreamforce last year. And this is a really exciting feature where we're going to be providing a containerized elastic scale platform. We're going to be giving you, our Salesforce developers, the ability to write customizations in Node.js, Java, or Apex. There's going to be lots of different invocation options. So this is going to be something where you can invoke from Apex or from Flow or from platform events or directly from a Lightning Web component. These are all things that we're looking to enable for this. As you execute this function, it's going to pass the Salesforce authorization information into, or authorization context into the function, meaning that it's going to live within the Salesforce trust boundary. We're looking at a number of different data services. Of course, one of those is going to be Apex, your Salesforce database. But we already have some great data source options available in Heroku, like Postgres, Redis, and Kafka. And we're looking to enable those as well. And of course, given that you might be writing Java or JavaScript, third-party libraries are something that you're going to be able to look into. And rather than just stick with an architectural diagram, I wanted to show some examples in what this code might look like. And what I can say is this is a working example of this in the current state of the pre-release version of this, the closed pre-release that we have right now. So don't take this as gospel truth for, this is exactly what you'll be writing, but, you should expect to see something like this. And you can see right at the top, we have sort of standard idiomatic Node.js imports of some key modules. Some of those are Salesforce APIs, some of those are third-party APIs, in this case, to generate a PDF, and some are standard Node.js modules, like the file system module. You can also see that this particular, that the way that we've written this is that there's going to be this agnostic code signature that's going to look the same no matter where you write your code. That signature contains some parameters that are really important. One of them is the payload, right? What's the data that we pass into this code? The next one is the context, and this is the thing that contains our authorization and our permission information. And this is actually going to be tied to a permission set that actually makes very clear, what are the execution permissions of this code. You can also see here we're in a Node.js module, but we're actually executing some SOCL. We're writing some SOCL into that module. And then finally, we have some transaction management. And that transaction management feature is what's going to allow us to make sure that that code can interact seamlessly with both the Salesforce database as well as other data sources that you may incorporate into a given Evergreen function. So that's just a little tiny taste of what I think everybody can expect, or something like you should expect when Evergreen comes to your development environment, hopefully sometime soon. Now, no Salesforce developer presentation would be quite complete without a little discussion of no code and low code. And I want to frame this from something I heard in a podcast last year. This is a quote from Vlad Magdalin, who's the founder of Webflow. Webflow is a no-code website building tool. And what he said is, that's the shift I see no-code taking us to. How do we get to more than 20 million people building software? 20 million people being the best estimate as to how many software developers there are today. And then he asks, how do we get to 1 billion people? And this blew me away when I heard this. And I'll tell you kind of why it blew me away, apart from just anybody saying 1 billion people being software developers. And of course, those of us who've been around Salesforce, this isn't really a new concept. Mark Benioff has this quote back in 2016. There are 20 million software developers. Probably we need 100 million. So, Vlad went and totally, one-upped Mark Benioff there. I'm not sure if Mark Benioff was talking about 100 million Salesforce developers or not. But in any case, he was definitely recognizing that there's this huge demand gap. It's something we all recognize in the developer ecosystem. And then a couple of years after that, Sarah Franklin was talking about the companies that can expand the number of people involved in creating powerful apps based on the right division of labor are going to win the race to making data and analytics useful in their business. And this is talking specifically about the balance between people who are comfortable writing code and people who are not comfortable writing code, and maybe they don't need to be able to deliver software. And so that brings me back to this quote here from Vlad Magdalin. And this is why I found this so astounding. This was on the Software Engineering Daily podcast. So that's not a Salesforce podcast at all. It's just about software engineering. And this was Vlad speaking to Jeff Meyerson, who is the host of Software Engineering Daily. And here I heard two software engineers agreeing together, completely outside the Salesforce ecosystem, that the way forward for building apps in the future is no-code tools. I had never heard that outside of the Salesforce ecosystem before. And to me, it really validated a lot of what's important to us. Now then. And that brings me to one last thing that I want to spend a moment on. Last week, if you attended the Low Code Love event, you'll have noticed that we launched a new project, and that's called Automation Components. This is another project in the sample apps gallery that we have now added so that we can show you best practices for using our low-code tools for org customization. So I'd really invite everyone to go take a look at that and see what those are. Knock them about a bit, use them, tell us how you like them, give us some suggestions. I'd love to hear everybody's feedback on that. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave off in technology. For me, I feel like we're kind of living through a renaissance of development in the Salesforce ecosystem. There are huge opportunities available to us. But let's talk about you. Code doesn't write itself, at least not yet. The people who make this happen are the developers. And in the world of developer relations, we spend a lot of time thinking about who are the developers that we need to reach. So, if we look at this, we can see, a traditional way we might have looked at this is, where are the developers today? And that's all well and good, but I've kind of been on this journey for the last year or so, kicked off by visiting the Morocco developer group, or I should say the Casablanca developer group in Morocco. It opened my eyes to what's going on outside of Europe, where I had done 99% of my work previously. And in the GitHub State of the Octaverse, there was a statistic that jumped out at me. And I looked at this. This is the highest growth of contributors by country in 2018. And I found this to be fascinating because what we had actually is we have, the things that jumped out at me. A few of these I sort of expected to see. I knew Italy was growing and Portugal, but seeing Nigeria and Egypt in there really made me sit up and pay attention. Now, fast forward to 2019, the same State of the Octaverse poll, and what this really surprised me because the African countries had disappeared from the highest growth of contributors. But that's not to say that it wasn't growing. It was growing in a different way, because the highest growth of OSS projects by country featured countries, again, like Nigeria, Kenya, Tunisia, Morocco. And to me, this told the story that actually what's going on in Africa, yes, I'm sure, contributors are growing, but actually some of those contributors who were growing previously have now gone on and become the innovators themselves, because this statistic is about new projects that are being launched in these countries. And I found that really exciting. In fact, the State of the Octaverse really focused in on Africa this year because they did a complete regional spotlight on Africa. So what are the fastest growing countries by contributors where there are more than 10,000 contributors in the country? And the rates there are just phenomenal. Even the fifth place South Africa at 40% growth. And if you look at some of the smaller countries, the growth rate is just absolutely off the charts. So for me, I see Africa as a really, really interesting opportunity. My time's getting short, so I'm going to skip some of the things on there. To me, the thing that really jumps out at me about Africa, and I had to do some research about this, Africa is 17% of the world population. Africa is 3% of GitHub contributors. Now, I'd be lying if I said that GitHub contributors is the full picture of who the developers are in the world, but I think that this does certainly give us some interesting food for thought. Maybe where we should be looking in enabling developers isn't so much where the developers already are, but we should be looking at where the developers of tomorrow and after that are going to come from. Africa is also innovating and now starting to export technology. This is an example of a company that innovated around getting Wi-Fi to hard-to-reach areas, and now they're selling that technology to Wisconsin in order to bridge internet dead spots there. There are innovations around developer community itself. This Concatenate conference ran for a week last year simultaneously in 2 different cities, with a simulcast between the cities that anybody in the world could watch. So Africa is not sitting around and waiting for us to come tell them to innovate. They're innovating. And if we're not connecting with Africa today, I think we're all missing a trick. And I'm sure Africa is not the only place where this is happening. If you look around where you are in the world, I'm sure you'll find other places that are like this. And the Salesforce community in Africa is also exciting. Now, we don't publish country-by-country statistics, but if you go to trailblazercommunitygroups.com and you filter on Europe, Middle East, and Africa, all you have to do is a little screen scrape. And what you're going to find is that 1 in 4 community groups in the EMEA region is in Africa. So to me, I'm really interested in what's going on in Africa, and this has spurred me on to look at what's going on in a lot of the parts of the world that we haven't traditionally reached in developer relations, to the effect that I've actually asked my entire team to present a minimum number of times this year to countries that are in either Africa or Latin America, because those align well with my team, which is in the United States and in EMEA. All right, some quick opportunities, and along the lines of what Leah said, and this is actually something I took from Mark Benioff in one of his recent employee calls, behind every challenge is really an opportunity. I really see UI as a big challenge for all of us right now. We had Visualforce that was massively successful. There are literally millions of Visualforce pages out there. We had 4 years of Aura and massive Aura enablement. And now a year ago, we've launched Lightning Web Components. So one of the things that we're trying to bring to you from developer relations is better enablement. If you are a Visualforce developer or an Aura developer, we want it to be really easy for you to skill up and move over to Lightning Web Components. And along that lines, I'm highlighting a module that already exists called Learn to Work with JavaScript. To me, getting to know modern JavaScript is one of the key things that you need to do to move into Lightning Web Components. But we're also beginning to look at how we can better enable Visualforce developers to make the move into Lightning Web Components. Now, we're kind of moving into a world where, we used to have big monoliths and synchronous executions, server-side Visualforce, monolithic user interface. And all of that's changing. And I think we're kind of there's a little bit of a vacuum going on right now around best practices, moving into some of the new ways of execution. And along those lines, I want to, to make sure everybody knows about the new architect relations team. So developer relations is about inspiring and enabling our developers. Architect relations is the same team, the same type of team, but specifically for those of you who are architects. They just launched their blog a couple of weeks ago. There's already great content out there, and they're hungry to work with the community to put forth and to become kind of a hub of best practices across projects. And the last little challenge is, of course, we are in the times that we're at right now. But, again, with every challenge, there is an opportunity. And I do think that for those of us who are able to, there's a huge opportunity for us to share something with someone somewhere in the world. So I'd really encourage everybody who is able to go out there and find someone to connect with. Maybe you are in one of those far reaches of the world and you can connect with somebody who's in one of the more established parts. Maybe you're in one of the more established parts of Salesforce, of the Salesforce world, and you can reach one of those hard to reach places. Whoever you reach out to, though, for sure, you have something to share with them, and for sure they have something to share with you. So reach out and follow the example of this conference. And use this new virtual world we have to create some connections that might not have been there before. So once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Jitendra, Amit, Rakesh. It's been a huge privilege to speak today. Thank you for the over 800 who've stuck around for me going over my time. And have a great 24 hours.
Awesome, Peter. Thank you so much. That's really a mind-blowing journey from where we all have come. Particularly me, I'm from the developer background since 2008, and I have never seen any platform growing like that. Take care of business, take care of admins, and take care of developers. So that's really remarkable. I'm so glad to be the part of the Ohana, so part to be the developer. In fact, we are so lucky to have you as a part of developer relation to coming up all these ideas and keep all the whole developer community up to date.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you so much, Peter, for being our keynote speaker. Everyone, enjoy virtual Dreamin. All your sessions will start appearing in the live session. So when it times 10 minutes early, it will pop up. If you have any question, go on the help desk, ask questions, search me, Rakesh, or our volunteers and post question there. The fun just started, 23 more hours for the virtual Dreamin. Peter, thanks for support. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Let's rock it.